Listen, you certainly have what I would say more of a non-traditional background for financial services marketers. So maybe it would help if you just want to start a little bit about how you've actually gotten to this place and talk a little bit about your background.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, thank you. It's nice to see many of you from this and the Portfolio Awards. So people who know me know I have a very untraditional background, actually. So I started as a filmmaker. So I went to film school. I'm a costume maker from Yale, and I went to NYU Film School. And so I love that. I shot my documentary film in Russia, in Moscow. And then I worked at Good Morning America for a period of time. And I think, I was always very interested in storytelling, but maybe more because of documentary and news, or having people tell me their stories. And I really enjoyed that. And I think it's a through line, that's marketing, right, is being able to tell a good story, but also being able to extract the story from others, right, and really understand them, in a very, very unique way. I took time off, right? I think it's always important, to share this, especially with women in the workforce who aspire to leadership positions. You can do that, it's okay. And if it's not okay for your company, then it's not the company for you, if that's what matters to you. So I took time off. And you'll notice there was no financial services yet, right? I had my daughter, who is now grown up, and my son who's graduating from college this year. And when he was in preschool, I was starting to get a little bit bored. I was like a champion volunteer everywhere, and I was like, I think I'd like to, do something maybe to pay. And one of the moms at the preschool, which was like a cooperative, a really small school, worked for Merrill Lynch. And she said, why don't you come in and meet some people, not for a job, but more just to think about how your skills, because I was a very strong writer just from being in film, how that might translate and how do you position yourself in the workforce. So by the time I actually got the appointment to meet, they needed a part-time editor and writer. And so I was hired. I still can't believe that I was hired, actually, but they did like a rating test and stuff, and I did well, so they hired me. And Merrill was just about ready to undergo massive transformation. So I'm sure people here in the room are old enough to remember this time, but Merrill Lynch's sort of brand promise was Wall Street to Main Street. Right? They were making access to the market accessible for everybody, not just for institutions. And they were going to reposition themselves as wealth management. So a new CEO, new head of marketing came in. She was extremely dynamic. She's a mentor to me to this day. And she came from agency world and Fidelity, and she fired basically everybody. You remember these days, right? So she basically fired just about everybody, but I did not get fired, and a couple of other people did not get fired, and she brought in some amazing talent from inside and outside the industry to actually transform Merrill's brand to what it is today, which is a preeminent wealth manager. That was just such an amazing opportunity. I always said, it was kismet. There's a little bit of luck in everything. There really is. Right time, right place. That was right time, right place for somebody who did not have a traditional background. She didn't want people with traditional backgrounds. She wanted people who were going to shake up things. But the flip side is you still have to love the business and learn the business and execute really, really well. Right? So it can be luck, but there's also a little bit of, you have to be able to execute. And I love the business. I really did. I believe to this day that, like doctors, people who are involved in wealth management or asset management their true purpose is to help people, families, really achieve what they want for themselves, their families, their legacies, because money makes that happen. It's not to make money, it's to achieve the things that you want for yourself and your family. And I think that that's a really, very important and noble purpose, and something that maybe gets forgotten, pretty quickly when you're in the thick of it.
No, that's great, and incredibly impressive. I mean, Rob touched upon some of it, and thanks for talking with somebody whose greatest claim to fame is being Rob's fearless leader. But listen, I think seriously, there's clearly.
You got to go to the Super Bowl, I think that's absolutely awesome.
Well, there's no shortage of volatility in the markets right now, so it's got to be a very interesting time to be a financial marketer. A lot of folks in the room are. Also some seemingly contradictory signals that I think a lot of consumers are dealing with right now. So how has that changed your approach to marketing and your strategies?
Yeah, so something we talked about like at the truck call, I think, approach to budgeting is really different now, right? I think it used to be you got a budget and you allocated your budget across disciplines and you handed that out to your leaders and it was like, you oversaw it, but there wasn't much going on after that. Budgeting's gotten much more nimble. And it's not just you plan for the year and manage to the quarter. It's much different than that. You actually have to be able to pivot fairly quickly to where the need is most urgent for growth and for meeting client needs. So that's one thing that is very different, I think, than ever before. The other thing that I think is not different is there are just some things that are true, which is you need to be listening to your clients. Right? That is true in any market. And so I mentioned this to you, and I thought it was very interesting, some of the research that we did with some of the partners and some of my colleagues who are here. We were looking to understand, for our brand value proposition, was it still resonating in the marketplace, et cetera. But what we were really looking for was, how are people feeling, right? How are people feeling, and what is going to emotionally resonate with people right now while there is so much volatility? And what we saw is, not surprisingly, people are resilient, and they're actually looking to be optimistic. People want to be optimistic. Right? There's just so much negativity in the world. It happened pre-COVID, but it definitely happened in COVID. There's just so much inherent negativity. Social media is a little bit of the cause of that, but people ultimately want to be positive and optimistic. And so what we learned in our study, right, because our brand promise is greater possibilities together, was that we were actually really underclubbing our brand promise in the marketplace. People want to hear about possibilities. They believe in possibilities. And if you are a brand that can help them see, uncover possibilities, and then actually go after them, that people want to hear from you.
That's great. Even if we go even more tactically, does it change anything that you do from a tactical perspective in terms of more acquisition related or more retention related in this type of climate?
Yeah, so I think we have made some changes, and Kate, you should come up and do this part of the conversation, not me. This was your strategy. So, I think we think very much about what is upper funnel and what is mid and lower, and we are focusing more on mid and lower. And in fact, even when you think tactically in the channel marketing or segment marketing space, it's a lot harder to win a new client than to do more with an existing one. That's true in any industry, frankly. Incumbency bias during volatility is really tough to break. And so we are also thinking even tactically, like in terms of, which clients are we targeting for events, which clients are we targeting for various other marketing experiences. We are focusing more on existing clients, less on what I would say is lead scoring, they hit the website twice, they open a fixed income thing, or leave it a fixed income. We're not doing that. And so we are more focused on mid and lower funnel. Now, part of that is, we are in an enviable position where Invesco QQQ does so much of a brand halo for us, right? So while everything that we do with Invesco QQQ, all the dollars we spend there are in service of driving flows to the queues and driving the brand of the queues, it's inevitable when it's Invesco QQQ that you get brand halo to Invesco. And so, when we moved to a global brand several years ago, that means that we have less heavy lift on the upper funnel, frankly, for Invesco. That said, they only know you for the queues, and that's where you really have to have your mid and lower funnel work really be exploring more of what Invesco can offer.
Yeah, I'm sure some of your storytelling background helps to demystify some of the complexity of financial services, but I'm sure that's a challenge as well, right?
Yeah, it is. I actually think where storytelling has helped me the most is internally because I think as marketers, and we also have client data and client analytics under our remit as a team. These are things that are not commonly understood, and so you do have to figure out how to communicate not just what they are, but why a company needs client data, why they need client analytics, why they need brand, why they need these things, and you have to get the jargon out. Right? You have to get the jargon out. No one cares about impressions. I'm just telling you, you can explain what an impression is. Right? But it's the metric. I know that a lot of you are here at the meeting buying space, right? It's the metric y'all try out. We got 1.5 billion impressions. Right, Rob? That's what we got from the Q's from NCAA sponsorship last year, right? Something like that. So it's like, that's awesome. Sounds amazing. Can you explain that to me? And then, just be conscious that, as you're communicating to your marketing colleagues, that the more jargon you use, the less relevant you are. And so you do have to figure out how to position, what you're bringing to market as how is it meeting business goals, how is it meeting, new client acquisition goals, how is it meeting great, because that's actually what marketing is doing. The metrics, and those need to be more your bellwether metrics than maybe some of the traditional ones.
So using the data to help tell a story and...
Yeah, even just telling a story about, you have to make these things tangible to people, right? Like, not everyone knows, of course, on Facebook, who wouldn't want to know their client fully? Okay, that's mom and pie. Everybody wants to know their client fully. But what will you do with that? And so you have to actually look ahead and say, okay, when you have this, when you spend the money to land this data, this is what you will now be able to do differently than you can do today. And people are like that. I'll sign up for that, right? And that's you, but it's a lot of work that way, internal, as well as external.
Yeah, that makes sense. So from a data perspective, obviously there's a lot of potential changes coming down the road from regulation. Biden talked about it in the State of the Union. Some are tech-focused. Apple made their changes. Google's eventually going to make those. And then there's some self-imposed, just being in the financial industry, regulations that you have to abide by as well. So what's your philosophy as you look to gather as well as utilize data for your marketing?
Yeah, so I think we all need to be prepared for, if there's, I've been on some, industry conversations and the obsession with cookies world. It's just an obsession with cookies world. But the thing is that, this is the benefit of being in asset management, which is a little bit less advanced than maybe consumer products. It's we weren't really doing much with cookies when I first got here anyway, so it's not that big a loss. But look, I think in the end, think about your own personal views on data and data privacy. We will share data with companies and brands, but there has to be a value exchange. And so the challenge I think that consumer products firms have had is they never had to think about value exchange for data. And they just have the cookies. And they chase you around. I think about it. I've had such horrible experiences, with cookies and just as a consumer. I'll tell a funny story because I think this is where it all goes amok and when there's no value exchange. So when my daughter was moving to the city, we all had Sattva mattresses. So I looked up, Sattva, and I went on, and I bought a mattress. I knew exactly the mattress we were buying. It took me 15 minutes. They chased me with ads for 6 months. And I wanted to tell, the ad, which I couldn't communicate to them, I already bought the mattress. Please stop chasing me around. I'm not buying another one, right? And this is where it goes wrong. And this is, I think, it makes it challenging from just a respect and loyalty perspective between consumers and brands. Because when it happened, we all of us had it. So we talk a lot more about value exchange, right? Because what you want to do for us, right, is we want the user to sign in. Right? That's them choicefully saying, I'm going to tell you who I am. But boy, you better be offering them something. Because we joke a lot that, advisors do not want to be marketed to. They just don't want to be marketed to. And they know why we want them to log in. They know. They'd rather give me probably their credit card information than log into the website, And so you really have to, and the bar is getting higher and higher and higher and higher in terms of what that value exchange is. It used to be content. It used to be, put your content behind the paywall, the real paywall. Okay, content. There's so much democratization of content now. Anybody can create content. Anyone can have thoughts and content. No one's going to log in for that. And so then what? And so that's more what we focus on than worrying about what happens when we can't use cookies anymore.
Right. So what is that value exchange? That's what everybody's focused on.
Because that's where the world is going to go. The world is going very fast towards, it's not just accepting the cookies and all that kind of stuff, but you have to deliver something of value to the person who is giving you access to their data.
So a direct consumer relationship essentially trumps all of the issues that are coming from data privacy and everything else because they're giving you that
They
consent.
opted in. They basically opted in.
Yeah. So that's more from a targeting perspective. How about from a measurement perspective? What are some of the tools that you looked at and KPIs that you looked at for the success of the campaign that you're working on?
Yeah, so we actually have a very robust sort of metrics plan against large-scale campaigns. So I'm going to use the Invest with BBQ just because I like using it as where we should go across all campaigns. But you benefit from what I call the extra zeros at the end, right? In terms of both spend, right? Because you need to spend a certain amount to be able to start doing, like for example, marketing attribution, marketing mix modeling. But you also, you benefit from the number of people who actually come and engage, right? So we start, like top of the funnel, we look at brand lift, right? So we'll do pre-post, during, brand lift, viewers, non-viewers, NCAA, for example. We do regular brand tracking quarterly. Our partners at LIMS help us with that and have since my arrival, I think. And that has given us so much valuable longitudinal information. I would say, you guys should talk to Bernard if you like on this, but you have to be careful when you pulse quarterly, because we do. We actually look quarterly. It's very easy to go like, whoa, or yay, and it's like, okay, don't let the highs get too high or the lows get too low, right? You're pulsing, but you do sometimes start to see trends because you're pulsing so frequently before they become a problem. Right, and I think that's been extremely valuable to us. So we look at brand metrics, which one might say are maybe softer metrics. Then each dimension of the campaign has tangible KPIs, and I mentioned before that we're really focusing through the funnel. Each part of the campaign is meant to address a part of the funnel, and then each element has KPIs. For us in Invesco PPQ, we do have a bit of a beacon KPI, a singular KPI, because so much is going to the website. We have basically a widget or a button that demonstrates intent to purchase Invesco PPQ, because remember, right, that's why we all do this, right? We want them to buy Invesco PPQ. And it's, are we at buy PPQ now? Are we there? Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. So it was said how to invest in PPQ, but we actually can, from a mind perspective, say buy Invesco PPQ. And we look to see what our conversion rate is there. So our conversion rate in 2022 was 2%. And you might say, oh, that's not very good. Well, actually, e-commerce conversion is 2 to 3.5%. So that's friggin' amazing.
Yeah.
Right, absolutely amazing. And so with that, it's really interesting. We've tried to shape our efforts against e-commerce as our beacon, as opposed to financial services as our beacon. Mm-hmm. Right. So imagine if you were in cars, you do all sorts of things. Like Visa does all sorts of things. American Express for brand, and all sorts of they have a brand message, a brand promise. But in the end, they want to open new cards. That is the singular thing that they are trying to do. And then they're trying to get existing cardholders to spend more. And so the faster you can get to a singular, you know exactly what that beacon metric is, then all of the rest of your metrics are about optimizing. Everything else is about optimization of the campaign itself and different campaign elements.
That's interesting. So there's a lot of new buzzwords and certainly a lot of new technology out there, metaverse, AI. What are some of the ones that are most interesting and maybe pragmatic for you as a marketer?
Yeah, so I was hoping we'd go here because I've become super obsessed with ChatGPT and AI and all the conversations around that. I've been involved in the marketing and the creative side for a long time, and the data and analytics side for not quite as long, but also for a long time. And I've thought for a while that it's not one or the other, it's both. And if you do only brand with no data, no analytics, right? You've missed a certain discipline, and frankly, you aren't really understanding your client. In the end, you're going to do same to many. But if you go all the way to the science route, and I've been in the industry long enough to see both, so flip and flop, right? If you go all the way to the data science route, you actually have no humanity, right? You lose creativity in some instances, and you definitely don't have emotional connection. And so you have to mix art and science. You have to mix art and science. And so there's a lot of anxiety in the system about I'll just use ChatGPT as shorthand. There's some good reasons for there to be anxiety in the system, right? I think it could very unfortunately upend our educational systems. If we thought plagiarism was a problem, and so I think that is a really bad outcome. I think people are also worried that their jobs are going to go away, right? Because, oh my God, we're not going to be writers anymore, right? I don't believe that's true. However, if you're doing something that's rote, like in our industry, if you're doing rote market commentary, well, frankly, ChatGPT can do that. If you have an interesting insight that is yours, let ChatGPT put the market context in and then write what is uniquely yours and save yourself a ton of time so that you can end up with clients, right? And I think it's going to be the integration of AI with human. There will be jobs that are going to go away because of AI. There absolutely will. There absolutely will. And there will always be a place for humans because that's that mix of I'll say, creativity and science. Yeah. So look, I'm very interested in bringing sort of content creation AI into Investo, and already started to have conversations with some of our investment teams and others because I think it can save them a lot of time. The rote stuff that they have to do, what's the worst it is? It's a first draft. Okay, that's awesome. How many of us are writers and know how hard it is with the white piece of paper versus somebody delivers you a first draft and it's easy peasy and your creative juices are flowing. So it will be purposeful. So I really get obsessed with this topic. So you can go time out and tell me to stop. But so I was looking at the New York Times yesterday. I don't know if people did, and on the app you could write a Valentine using ChatGPT. I don't know if people played with it. They were horrible. Like it was just horrible, and it showed exactly what it can and what it can't do. Right now, for now, right for now. The more people who use AI, the better the model gets.
Right.
And so what's missing now is also humanity, right? But enough people use it and start correcting it, maybe it'll have humanity too. But for now, not so much.
That's funny. So speaking of humans and human connection and creativity, where do you stand on the whole work from home versus in office debate that's going on right now?
Yeah. So I was fully in the remote camp for a long time. And especially as people were really nervous, and especially my New York team, as they were really nervous about coming back in, and some of them were at the time incredibly unsafe. And so we were very relaxed, very chill about returning to the office. I focused more on, and my leadership team focused more on the purpose of being together as opposed to you will come in Tuesdays and Thursdays. That felt a bit random. But be purposeful about why you come in. I would say that's, the team's here, I would say that's worked pretty well. And people have found their way, right? They found, I have other partners who are in on Tuesday, so I'm definitely coming in on Tuesday because it's worthwhile to come in. Nothing is worse, and I've been in this situation. I'll go in on some random day, there's no board day for the team, or something else I need to do in the city. I'll be alone in the office, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. Or I come into the office and I'm on calls all day. Also ridiculous. And so you just have to think about why. I've been much more focused on purpose and why you come in.
Right.
So we also have a lot of early career team members. In fact, we have an early career rotational program for young people coming right out of college, and because our organization has so many diverse places in it. That you can learn and experience what marketing really is. And so I think I'm happy to see when I see our earlier career people. Not because I feel like they need to be per se, but like that is part of the job experience. And I think especially in New York, oftentimes people are sharing apartments and they have lots of roommates and they're sort of balancing their laptop on a box and like they don't have what you have when you live in Connecticut or New Jersey. Like I have an office, I shut the door, and and I think it's just so important to just get out of your apartment. Like just get out of your apartment, and the office was always a place to go to do that. And then, if you're new to the city or new to Atlanta, you don't have a network yet. Well, work is how you start to build friends, right? You join a sports team together, or you like music and you go and do that after work. So I've moderated a little bit, but I was not somebody who was, everyone back 5 days a week.
Right, yeah. Somebody equated it to me as going to the gym. It's nobody wakes up in the morning excited to go to the gym, but they're always happy afterwards when they actually go there. So I think we have time for a question or two. Anybody in the audience?
Shy, stand up. Raise your hand.
So I'm curious to the extent that you're comfortable and you can talk about this. You talk about that value exchange when people come to your site. So have you figured out yet what the value is that you can give them, or what's the solution to this?
No, we haven't. And so we are experimenting with different things because I suspect that there's not a singular value exchange.
Yeah.
Right? You'll have, so I'll speak about advisors for now, right? But we can talk institutions as well. Let's talk about advisors, right? So if you're a breakaway RIA and you're not, a hybrid that's associated with a big firm like an LPL or something like that, you have certain things that you don't have anymore to support your business and grow your business, right? Maybe you don't have digital tools. Maybe you need co-branded marketing, right? And so that would be a type. You're going to have to figure out sort of the types of clients, prospective clients or prospective clients, and what they need most. If you're a mega team at Morgan Stanley, you don't need anything from us. You're never logging in. Okay, that's okay, right? Because we'll market to you differently. We'll market to you through your primary contact, which would be, your consultant. And so I think we're going to have to really refine. And so we are experimenting, as many firms are, with what I call a digital sales population. So they're long-tail advisors. They don't really have relationships with us. And again, and we're just thinking through different engagement tactics. But through that, it's a sort of do no harm, group. I think we're going to see different behavioral personas that are very closely aligned with the type of business practice they have, because that's where there might be an opportunity to fill a gap, and that's the value exchange.
I think we have time for one more.
Hi, it's Jim from CNBC. Curious to know, March Madness is around the corner. That plays a big role in your marketing efforts. How are you thinking about events and sponsorships and people back in person?
Yeah, so we've definitely seen events returning to in-person starting last year, frankly. And people do want to get back together. I mean, a number of the team were at ETF Exchange. It was just last week, right? And so, obviously, I think the bar is really high for experiential. And it means it's high if you're a sponsor, right? It means what you do in your booth, what you do on your panels, what you do with your client events, et cetera. And it's high for the organizers of those engagements as well. And I think I think there's a couple reasons for that. One is companies don't have limitless travel budgets. And so when someone travels to go do something, boy, it better be worth it. Okay, and worth it both in terms of experience, networking, opportunity to sell, et cetera, et cetera. I also think that we've all become a little bit more protective of our time, and that happened in COVID, right? So I was talking to someone here from Twitter who mentioned that she had her baby during COVID, and now she's pregnant again, and how different the world is for her in those experiences. And I think we found that we liked being with our families for the most part, right? And I think for those of us who, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think back on my time when my kids were small, and I always was very disciplined about the time with them. I knew what mattered, right? I would not take a job that would not check those boxes for me, that didn't offer me that level of flexibility to be with my kids, they were athletes, to go to their games, to go take them to practice, et cetera, et cetera. I think now everyone feels that. They are protective of their time. They see that they can be efficient in virtual ways. Might not be the best, but they can be efficient in virtual ways. And so if you're going to pull them out, you have to make it worth it. And so the experience is going to need to be something they can't get for themselves, that they can't pay for, they can't, network their way into, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the high bar is really high.
I think that's all we have time for today. Emily, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely, yeah.